good thing, everything is permitted, which is not prohibited expressly or by clear implication. Examine this statement with suitable examples in the context of public servant discharging his or her duties. See, this question appears to be very convoluted. It has a lot of layers. So I read it again 2 or 3 times. I had to read this question in order to get a sense of what's being asked. In doing a good thing, everything is permitted. Note the word everything is permitted, which is not prohibited. So you can do anything, but not the thing which is expressly prohibited. Okay. And what we had to do is to examine the statement. The word examine means that you have to find out, you have to either agree with the statement also and disagree, both positive as well as negative. Those 2 dimensions need to be covered in this answer. So examine the statement with suitable examples in the context of a public servant discharging the duties. So I feel that in the positive of it, that in doing a good thing, everything is permitted. So I was just reminded of the example of compassion. We often quote this example that if a poor lady who's a widow from a very poor caste is coming to you and asking for a pension card or a PDS card, ration card, then either you can reject her plea saying that you don't have the required number of documents, or you go an extra mile and be compassionate enough, be emotional intelligent and do her work. So here it is being positively used, that everything is permitted means you can somehow help the woman to get those certificates and those benefits, and somehow you can also give her some time, that okay, we're giving you these many time, even if that's not explicitly allowed by the law. So it's not prohibited, but you're doing it for the sake of public interest. That I felt is a positive one for this line. But since examine is given, a negative example also had to be given, and so I gave the example of how for giving any particular duty, it is not prohibited to extend the time. It is not prohibited. Generally, we don't have really stiff, stern timeline to do the work. So generally, civil servants or public servants might involve themselves in, being lazy and pushing the files like that, not looking into them. So I felt that was a moment where negatively this point could be taken, and that example I took, that public servants keep pushing the files and be lazy and keep pushing their work on each other. That is not expressly prohibited, but it is impacting the efficiency and productivity of the work of that department. And that is how I opened up the 2 dimensions of the issue. Examine me, talking about both one example of positively how the statement can be taken of compassion and going an extra mile for that lady, even if it is expressly not prohibited, and negatively in the case where they push files, push cases against each other, and not against but for each other. They say that I'm not doing this work, that person will do it. This is like pushing files, increasing the time. So this is not expressly prohibited, but this has a negative impact. So these 2 dimensions I covered. Moving on to part B, with regard to morality of actions. One view is that means are of paramount importance, and the other view is that ends justify the means. Which view do you think is more appropriate? And justify your answer. See, in this question, you don't have to really work on both the aspects equally, because they're asking you your view. And your means ends debate, this is something which we read in ethics a lot, means and end. So I personally utilized the argument of Gandhiji that means are equally important for reaching the end. If you're only considering about the end, then you may end up using such means which are completely defeating the end purpose. So I went with that means are important, but I also tried to justify it by quoting Gandhiji, quoting some examples like how he utilized a path of non-violence satyagraha, and he knew that his path was equally important as the freedom of the country, and how those ethos have continued to be vibrant in today's country, India. Even today we utilize that particular political satyagraha and non-violence today, because Gandhiji had established very clearly that non-violence is the only path and means is equally important. So I think for the sustainable purpose, I use that word sustainable thing, For that, means are important. But at the end, I also wrote that ends are also something which we should have in mind. It is not that we completely focus on means and end is defeated.